Today I will briefly talk about the six-syllable mantra or Avalokiteshvara's heart mantra, or the merit of reciting Namo Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva. I will just explain it briefly. In fact, I have spoken about Avalokiteshvara's heart mantra and the merits of Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva on many occasions. I remember back when I taught the way of the Bodhisattva, I dedicated a whole session to the merits of Avalokiteshvara's heart mantra. Later, when teaching the Lotus Sutra, specifically the Universal Gateway chapter, I also mentioned it. And then during the teachings on the Shurangama Sutra, when we discussed Avalokiteshvara's perfect enlightenment through the faculty of hearing, I also spoke at that time about the inconceivable merits of Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva. Especially in 2022, I gave 14 classes on the Karanda Vyuha Sutra. I felt the introduction given to everyone back then was quite all right, and now many people are also studying it. I also hope that many of our Dharma friends in the coming years will spend more time studying the Karanda Vyuha Sutra, because the merits of the six-syllable Great Bright Mantra, as described in that sutra, are truly important for each one of us. Of course, if you have no faith or if you don't care about this, that is fine. But in reality, every one of us will encounter pain, difficulties, and various setbacks in our lives. At those times, if we sincerely pray to Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, the one who saves beings from suffering and distress, we will find that in real life, the benefits are truly boundless. Therefore, I also hope, since we gave 14 classes at that time, which doesn't seem like too many sessions, that after everyone finishes studying them, you can go and read the content of this sutra. This should be quite helpful. I should also mention Patrul Rinpoche's text, excellent at the beginning, middle, and end. I also taught this back in 2004, which was probably over 20 years ago when I taught it in 2004. Then a couple of years ago in 2023, I taught it to you all again. Patrul Rinpoche is excellent at the beginning, middle, and end, mainly discusses Avalokiteshvara's heart mantra and the merits of Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva. This is extremely important for us. I remember Patrul Rinpoche saying in it, "Who is the deity who embodies all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas? It is Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva." The embodiment of all secret mantras, the ultimate heart mantra, is the six-syllable mantra. The supreme dharma that embodies all generation and completion stages is bodhicitta. So it is actually a matter of knowing one to liberate all. Knowing just Avalokiteshvara's heart mantra liberates everything. To rest in that understanding and chant the six-syllable mantra. This truly reflects a deep karmic connection. Therefore, if we truly want to practice a deity, there are of course very many deities, whether in Tibetan Buddhism or Han Buddhism or in other lineages. There are exceptionally many deities. But among the deities, if we meditate upon the greatly compassionate Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, the forms of Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva are diverse. It can be like the 32 manifestations of Guanyin in the Han region, or in some of our sadhanas and practices, a feminine and highly loving form of Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva is also fine. In Tibetan areas, the majority rely on the four-armed Avalokiteshvara, and many Terma teachings practice the four-armed Avalokiteshvara. In India as well, Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva has different methods of practice, including the Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva from that time, such as the thousand-armed and thousand-eyed Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, and many Avalokiteshvara Dharma gates, including the 108 names. The merits connected with Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva in this tradition can be found in sutras translated by the Indian monk Tian Shizai during the Song dynasty texts, now preserved in both the Chinese and Tibetan Buddhist canons. So I think it is sometimes necessary for me to give all of you a gentle reminder. Why remind you? Because as ordinary beings, we might engage in virtuous deeds normally, and some people spend their whole life, whether chanting mantras or reciting sutras or cultivating bodhicitta, remaining consistent without change. But there are some people who for a period of time do quite well. For example, after reading a book or encountering the teachings of a spiritual friend, or receiving blessings from Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, or experiencing some unpleasant situations due to conditions like these, they do well for a while. But after a little while, they revert back to their original state. They cannot be diligent, nor can they practice persistently. This is a common flaw among many of us, a shortcoming many share. That is why we constantly urge you to listen and reflect, and urge you to practice. What is the reason? Actually, whether for ourselves or others, many people need constant reminders, supervision, and encouragement. In fact, many of us here, most are indeed quite remarkable, especially lay practitioners who have to care for their families, care for their work, and manage their lives. And in today's world, many things are quite difficult to handle. The pressure is immense, and emotions can be unstable. All kinds of afflictions pile up, and one unsatisfactory event follows another. Under these circumstances, we still maintain our determination for the path, remaining steadfast without turning back. This point is truly extraordinary. Some people often tell me, I am very ashamed now, my practice is poor, and I read very few books and do very few good deeds. They often harbor a sense of dissatisfaction with themselves, as if burdened by remorse. But actually, I feel that none of us have regressed in our major principles. For example, as a disciple of the Three Jewels, you have never lost the heart that takes refuge in the Three Jewels. If you are a Mahayana practitioner, you have never lost your bodhicitta. The mindset of wanting to liberate sentient beings has remained uninterrupted. If this is the case, this is actually quite remarkable too. Indeed, practicing the true Dharma for millions of eons in a perfectly pure world cannot surpass the merit of keeping a single precept or guarding a virtuous heart in this degenerate age. That merit is truly inconceivable. This is clearly stated in the Samadhi Raja Sutra and other related sutras and shastras. Therefore, I think for many of us, we shouldn't set our expectations too high. If the expectations are too high, not only will people lose their drive to improve, but they will also feel pressured. Today I met two people who told me that every day they recite the Heart Sutra 7 times, recite Avalokiteshvara's Heart Mantra 108 times, recite the 100-syllable mantra 21 times, and sometimes recite the Diamond Sutra. Apart from this, they might not be able to do much else, but they have consistently kept up with this practice. I was full of praise for them. They felt they weren't doing enough because they hadn't engaged in deep listening and contemplation. Actually, if you can listen and contemplate deeply, that is certainly wonderful. But even if you cannot, doing these virtuous deeds is better than not doing them. If you do nothing at all, you will still go on living, but this precious human life would truly be wasted. Therefore, as long as we are doing good deeds, it is quite excellent. On this point, we should all show acknowledgement and validation to others. I am speaking from the bottom of my heart, not just saying what you want to hear. When many of us here offer advice to others, we should also do it positively. We need to encourage and uplift people, boosting their interest and confidence. This is a better approach. Otherwise, as soon as some of us open our mouths, we say that's wrong, that violates the bodhisattva vows, that violates the pratimoksha, that violates the tantric precepts. When everything becomes something to criticize and the focus is entirely on the negative, this approach actually makes things very difficult for people. Even when I encounter situations like certain inconveniences at work, there are people who drink or smoke and some who kill animals. Of course, in our hearts we know that if one refrains from killing and these non-virtues, living a pure life is wonderful. But living in this way is very hard to achieve in this degenerate age. So even if there is just a fraction of virtue or a tiny bit of kind-heartedness, we should encourage it to help them continue practicing. We should all advocate for this approach. At the same time, the easiest practice, one with no barriers, and which brings immense benefit to people from all walks of life, is Avalokiteshvara's heart mantra, or chanting Namo Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva. This particular Dharma gate is truly crucial for many people today, especially in the current times. I haven't specially prepared for today, but a while ago I kept having a strong, spontaneous feeling in my heart that I must advise everyone to recite Avalokiteshvara's heart mantra more, or Namo Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva. Why? Because there are many things happening in the world right now, whether it be wars, conflicts, various diseases, plagues or disasters, all sorts of unsatisfactory and unfortunate events and unwelcome circumstances that keep coming one after another. They are numerous and frequent. In this situation of, if many of us sincerely and consistently pray to Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, calling upon him together, then for most situations we can rely on the deep karmic bond between Avalokiteshvara and all beings to purify these negative conditions. Of course, if the collective karma of all sentient beings has fully ripened, that is beyond anyone's power to stop. but for most circumstances, prayer truly makes a difference. And when all causes and conditions align, these negative karmas, whether collective or individual, or such adversities and hardships, will have a chance to be transformed. And I'll be honest with you, speaking to you today, I may not have the same urgent passion I felt when this topic first arose in my heart. A while ago, I really wanted to talk about this, but at the time I was teaching Madhyamaka, and it felt inconvenient to pause it in the middle, so I kept teaching it. Therefore, today I mainly want to tell you that all of us present here, no matter what state you are in, should constantly recite Avalokiteshvara's heart mantra. Mani Padme Hum might seem like just a six-syllable mantra and very simple. Indeed, it is very simple. But the benefits it brings us, whether temporary or ultimate, for ourselves or for all sentient beings, are incredibly immense. Actually, I see many of our Buddhist followers not reciting mantras in their daily lives. This is a bit regrettable. If you look at some elderly people in Tibetan areas, they always hold a mala in their hands, reciting constantly wherever they go. They don't only practice during a formal Dharma assembly or only on special days like the 10th or 15th of the lunar month or Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva's birthday, only rushing to practice at those times or happily gathering for a feast offering to recite a mantra. That's not how it is. At any time and any place we should be reciting Avalokiteshvara's heart mantra or Manjushri's heart mantra. I remember His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche, back in 1986, visited many monasteries in our Kham region. I may compile some writings about this experience in the future, though I'm still deciding whether to document the details of each monastery separately or just give a general account. Because in every monastery we visited, His Holiness urged everyone to recite Manjushri's heart mantra, and there were dozens of monasteries. It's a significant undertaking to document each one, because in every monastery we visited, and there were probably dozens of them which are currently being tallied, the attendance in each monastery was sometimes over 100,000 at most, and a few thousand or 100 at the least. But His Holiness spoke a lot about the merits of Manjushri Bodhisattva's heart mantra, and then requested everyone, saying, I am going to Mount Wutai next year, and he asked that every one of you recite Manjushri's heart mantra 100 million times. Wow, at that time, later you might know about this when the book comes out. If I do not pass away, I will have such a plan in the future to document this experience from 1986 of His Holiness's travels. So there, at that time, everyone vowed to recite the heart mantra 100 million times. At that time, a few individuals seemed unwilling to recite, so they hid in a corner inside the prayer wheel room. At this moment, His Holiness, who sometimes truly manifested clairvoyance, said, there are two people hiding in a certain prayer wheel room. Everyone else is willing to recite the Manjushri heart mantra 100 million times, so why aren't you? Later, those people were very frightened, so they came out and also vowed to recite the mantra. So I think back then, whether in Tibetan areas or later when His Holiness went to Mount Wutai, all the sentient beings he made connections with along the way recited the heart mantra 100 million times. Some people had also recited Avalokiteshvara's heart mantra before, and Guru Rinpoche's heart mantra. There were so many. Therefore, for many of us, it is truly a missed opportunity that our Dharma practice is not applied in our daily lives. What is meant by daily life? Whether taking a train or a plane, cooking or doing anything else, we can take these everyday activities and, for example, play the teachings of the masters, putting on audio or video recordings nearby. This is perfectly fine too, although it may not look like we are attending a class in the shrine hall, listening very formally. But when you compare listening to not listening at all, listening is certainly better, because by listening in this way, while you are engaged in other tasks, your time is not wasted. At least you might remember a sentence or two, which is also a very good thing. Another thing is reciting mantras in daily life. Indeed, when I was young, which happened to be during the Cultural Revolution, generally if someone was seen reciting mantras, they would face sanctions. But some elderly practitioners would silently recite without stopping, their lips moving constantly, even when many leaders criticized them because they had been used to it since childhood. Their lips kept moving, and they just couldn't help it. At that time I was in primary school, I think it was around 1976. Between 1976 and 1978, roughly. I started primary school in 1977. So during those 2 years I was living with an elderly Lama who had been a monk in the past. He didn't dare wear monastic robes at the time, but his mouth was constantly reciting mantras. Actually, there are many people like this who ever since childhood, as soon as they wake up, chant Om Mani Padme Hum or Om Ahum Vajra Guru Padma Siddhi Hum. Many young people today lack this habit. In Tibetan areas, the elderly basically all do it. Of course, people vary. Some exceptionally kind-hearted people simply love to practice virtuous deeds and recite mantras. Some people are born with no interest in virtue. This was true in the past, and it is true now. But for most people, when it comes to practice and reciting mantras, they apply them in their daily lives. They don't wait until all their chores are done and free time arrives before sitting down to recite. Instead, they weave the practice into whatever they are doing as part of their daily lives. Actually, if you do have this, it is also wonderful. The people I met today, they said they basically spend about half an hour, around 26 minutes each day doing their personal practice. If you can set aside time specifically like this, it is certainly very good. If you cannot do that, when we are walking or going about our tasks, if your environment permits, you should silently recite to yourself and keep reciting these mantras continuously. As for mantras, there are of course very many, but just as Patrul Rinpoche mentioned earlier, the essence of all these secret mantras is Avalokiteshvara's heart mantra. So as I have repeatedly told everyone before, if you have previously made a vow to recite Manjushri's heart mantra or Guru Rinpoche's heart mantra, then that is of course wonderful. Whether or not you've made such a vow before, I encourage you to form a wholesome connection with Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva's heart mantra. If you cultivate this auspicious bond, it can hold profound significance for your present life and all your future lives. So today I am also thinking of advising everyone. I did bring it up earlier, but bringing it up here today, I also want to remind everyone here today to see if we can personally develop the habit of frequently reciting mantras. Actually, it may seem like this mantra, Om Mani Padme Hum, is just 6 syllables and very simple, but in reality its meaning is truly inconceivable. You might have also read the biographies of the 8 great bodhisattvas that I translated a few years ago. Within the biographies of the 8 great bodhisattvas, it also elaborates on the merits of Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, and other related books also discuss how the 6-syllable mantra was originally obtained, and the merits of the 6-syllable mantra. Including at the end of our Treasury of Blessings sadhana, there are also explanations on the merits and benefits of reciting mantras. All of this shows that this 6-syllable mantra is not just about the simple merits of Avalokiteshvara's heart mantra. For example, Om Mani Padme Hum. Om is the embodiment of the body, speech and mind of the Buddhas of the 3 times. Mani means jewel, and Padme means lotus. Hum is the seed syllable of Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva. So the meaning of this mantra can be understood like this. By relying on the power of all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, Avalokiteshvara, who embodies their body, speech and mind, stands before us like a wish-fulfilling jewel and an unstained lotus flower, pure and undefiled. Wisdom and great compassion are indivisibly one. May this deity's form, born of such wondrous causes and conditions, bless our body, speech and mind, so that our own impure body, speech and mind become inseparable from those of Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva. In this way, just as we visualize in our minds, when you think of Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, actually this thought is Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva. According to the view of the great net of illusion in the secret mantra vehicle, it is like the pure deity. In fact, one aspect of its meaning is that in the external world, there truly is a physical form of Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva with a face and features. What is this called? It is the illusory net of forms. But in the definitive illusory net, one's own mind is Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, or the thought that arises in our minds is Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva. Besides this, not searching for Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva elsewhere is also acceptable. That is to say, when we think of Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva or Manjushri Bodhisattva in our minds, or our Guru, this very thought is Manjushri Bodhisattva, it is Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, it is the Guru. This point in our Vajrayana and in related pith instruction practices is also very rich and extensive. So today here, indeed, whether for our own benefit or for others to gain benefit, let us all do more group practice of Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva's mantra. And every year, even if it is just 10,000 times, that is fine too. At least 10,000 or 100,000 times, recite Avalokiteshvara's heart mantra a bit more. In this regard, Tibetan Buddhist culture is truly something we can all learn from. Everyone vows to recite hundreds of millions of mantras. If one makes this vow, they cannot possibly not recite. Maybe some people won't finish and die before completing it. But as His Holiness explained before, even if you cannot finish, as long as your aspiration remains unbroken, you will actually gain the same merit as reciting 100 million times. Generally speaking, a vow of 1 million or even 10 million recitations is considered quite modest by Tibetan standards. When you think about how long a human life is, reciting even 1 million heart mantras is really not that much. But for some people in other cities, wow, reciting 100,000 times feels like far too much. So I am saying 40 years ago, in 1986, His Holiness asked everyone, when everyone lined up, he first explained the merits of Manjushri Bodhisattva and then the merits of reciting Manjushri's heart mantra. After finishing the explanation, he said, I am reciting Manjushri Bodhisattva's heart mantra 100 million times, and the retinues I brought with me, dozens of people, have all taken the vow. I hope you will take the vow too. At that time, His Holiness said this everywhere he went. When he said this, everyone raised their hands or went up one by one before His Holiness to take the vow. Actually, at that time, those people 40 years ago were also human, and we are human too. But nowadays, we haven't asked you to recite Manjushri's heart mantra. What I mean is, if among you vow to recite 100 million times, or 10 million, or 1 million times, you can silently visualize before Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, please bless me. Today I make a vow before you to recite 100 million times, to recite 10 million times. This is also perfectly fine. If you make this vow and recite accordingly, this is extremely important. Some people seem to go their whole lives without reciting much, only reciting a few hundred times, or 108 times. Of course, this is setting the bar very low. For someone with very low expectations for themselves, reciting Avalokiteshvara's heart mantra 108 times a day is at least a start. Over 100 days, that is over 10,000 times, and in a year it might be around 30 or 40,000 times. This is still better than not reciting at all. But as someone who truly practices Mahayana Buddhism, the six-syllable mantra is indeed extremely important. Previously, the Tibetan Lera Blingpa also said that the most essential wish-fulfilling jewel of all the Buddhas in the 10 directions is actually gathered within the six-syllable mantra. So, if we recite or visualize the six-syllable mantra in a very short time, we can attain the realization of the Buddhas of the 3 times. This is something that comes very easily. Therefore, if we want to realize the true ultimate profound meaning of the Buddhas of the 3 times, we must rely on our personal practice of reciting the six-syllable mantra. I remember His Holiness in Always Remembering, which I translated for you before, right? His Holiness's teaching, Always Remembering. In that book, His Holiness said, you must recite Avalokiteshvara's heart mantra. You must recite Avalokiteshvara's heart mantra, Om Mani Padme Hum. He kept emphasizing it like this with great focus. Before His Holiness passed away, about 1 or 2 months prior, His Holiness asked everyone to use prayer wheels containing the six-syllable mantra during the Sukhavati Dharma assembly. So perhaps those who have been to Tibetan areas, you should all know this. Whether you are up in the mountains or down below, when you enter a monastery, the prayer wheels at the entrance, both the large and small ones, all contain the heart mantra of Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva. And on our mountains and along the roadsides, everywhere you go, you can see Avalokiteshvara's heart mantra carved into stones or carved at the foot of the mountains. Nowadays, we frequently see huge displays of Avalokiteshvara's heart mantra at the foot of the mountain or covering the hillside, crafted from white concrete, or in our thankas. And on stone walls, we see Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva. Actually, speaking of Tibetan areas, it's a world steeped in the culture of Avalokiteshvara. You could say that this is how it has been from the very beginning. When the Buddha Dharma first arrived in Tibet, the Sutra of the Precious Casket, a sutra centered on Avalokiteshvara's heart mantra, descended miraculously upon the royal palace. Then came an emanation of Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva himself. King Songtsen Gampo spoke extensively about the merits of Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva in the Mani Padme. Sometimes it seems that indeed for people in Tibetan areas, because the climate there isn't great and living conditions are quite scarce, but looking at it from another perspective, everyone is growing up and learning amidst Avalokiteshvara's heart mantra, his culture and the atmosphere of his blessings. Living there is actually a great fortune. Actually, in the Han region and other places, it's very similar. There's a well-known saying in Chinese Buddhist culture, Avalokiteshvara in every home, Amitabha in every household. In other words, whether someone is a devoted practitioner or not, Avalokiteshvara has become a presence in the everyday life of so many people. Especially in the southern regions. In the south, people might not necessarily be Buddhists, but we often see temples dedicated to Avalokiteshvara in many places. Even people driving cars have various images of Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva placed in front of the driver, praying for protection and auspiciousness. So to those without faith, this might look a bit foolish. What good does this little thing do? But actually, in a certain sense, it brings tremendous benefit. So I also hope that having Avalokiteshvara's heart mantra on us when we go out, or an image of Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, is very important. Nowadays, many people sometimes wear photos or images of their gurus or idols, some celebrities' photos or images. I think wearing a guru's image is fine too if they are truly a remarkable guru, possessing the merits of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. But that's hard to say. It's acceptable if you have faith in them. But most importantly, if we are to wear amulets, as I have said many times before, it is best to wear images of Shakyamuni Buddha, Guru Rinpoche, or Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva. Therefore, no matter where we are, whether at home or outside, whether we are among people of any background or any part of the world, we hope to set up images of Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva so that everyone can encounter his name, even for those without faith. Whispering Avalokiteshvara's heart mantra into their ears a few times is beneficial. In Tibetan areas, it is truly like this. If we see little insects that have dried up and died in the sun by the roadside, in such situations, almost everyone would immediately go over to the side of the road and recite Om Mani Padme Hum. If we see someone who is sick, we also chant Om Mani Padme Hum. Usually when encountering someone who has died, seeing a corpse, or even when mentioning the name of a deceased person, for instance, if I mention my own father's name, I want to mention him. My father was named Yupo, Om Mani Padme Hum. Whenever I am about to mention his name, I recite the mantra myself. Or if I mention a neighbor or a friend's name or someone I don't know well at all, but I know the person's name. When chatting with others, I first recite an Om Mani Padme Hum before bringing up the name of the deceased. Actually, it might seem superfluous in a certain sense, especially to those without faith and those lacking knowledge in this area. Such practices might appear very peculiar. But if you truly understand the teachings and benefits regarding this, it is extremely beneficial for the deceased. When someone passes away, even reciting 100 repetitions of the Mani mantra is something that for the deceased surpasses all the wealth of the entire world combined, wealth that they could never obtain on their own. So personally, including offerings made by others, funds donated on behalf of the deceased, I use all of it to carve the Mani mantra into stone. As for carving the Mani mantra and printing prayer flags these days faces all kinds of restrictions, including environmental regulations, making it difficult to hang them on mountainsides. There are limitations in many areas. But by comparison, carving the Mani mantra is still more accessible. So personally, when I come across offerings, whether for others or for myself, especially funds left by those who have passed, I feel uneasy using them for my own benefit. I try my best to put them toward carving the Mani mantra. Among all meritorious practices, the Mani mantra holds a truly special place. Generally speaking, carving the Mani mantra into stone carries immense merit. As for me personally, and I'm sure my experience is quite different from many of yours, I was around 6, 7, 8, 9 years old when I began, and every year I would carve many stones with the Mani mantra myself. That's how I grew up. Even now, well, in my younger years, there wasn't much worth writing about in a biography, but I did carve a great many. In different valleys, I carved the Mani mantra everywhere. Perhaps it was the influence of the spiritual teachers I had at the time, or perhaps from a very young age I had a deep karmic connection with the Mani mantra. Even when herding cattle, I would carry a black prayer wheel with the Mani mantra on it, reciting the mantra while walking barefoot in the fields every day. If I spotted officials coming down the road, whenever someone appeared on the path, I would quickly hide it, or sometimes duck into a pile of brushwood. That was the environment I grew up in. So for me personally, what I'm sharing with you today about the merits of the Mani mantra, this is not something I've come to by skimming a few books or briefly meeting some people or watching a few videos online. It is not like that at all. This comes from my own lived experience, from a deep sense felt since childhood that Avalokiteshvara truly bestows blessings, that this is a real and living deity. And the mantra of this real deity throughout my whole life, whenever I have a moment, even just a little, for instance right now in the past, including offerings from others, I always worried I didn't have the merit to truly receive them. So I would recite the mantra on their behalf day after day. I remember when I had just taken ordination and went to the Markham area for a retreat, along the way a family offered me 10 yuan. Right away when I got back, I recited 10,000 repetitions of the Mani mantra on their behalf. I was afraid I couldn't properly receive what had been offered. But now it seems I've become a seasoned old hand in the Dharma. That sense of urgency is gone. But regardless, whenever there is any need, however small, whether from the living or the deceased, whatever offerings come my way, I try as much as possible to put them toward the Mani mantra, toward printing prayer flags, carving Mani stones and so on. For all of you here, you should think along these same lines. While you are still alive, recite the Mani mantra as much as you can and pray to Avalokiteshvara. He transcends all ethnicities and requires no prerequisites. Some of our other Dharma practices require an empowerment before you can do them, or require training in the generation and completion stages and so on. There are all sorts of conditions to meet. But the Mani mantra has no barriers whatsoever. Anyone, whether you've taken refuge or not, whether you have faith or not, it doesn't matter. Old and young alike can recite it. People from the East, people from the West, people of every background, even reciting it just once or twice is a truly precious karmic connection. We human beings can recite it. I remember when I visited Africa, I went into a prison there. I'm not sure if there's still video of it. And when I went inside, I was filled with a deep sense of compassion for them. But there wasn't much else I could do. So I recited the Mani mantra together with them. They were dancing as they recited, because African people have such a natural love of dance and song. So they were singing and dancing together, Om Mani Padme Hum, and I was genuinely moved. I thought to myself, if I were to teach the Dharma today, I likely couldn't transform them, couldn't awaken within them renunciation or bodhicitta. That for me would not be a simple task, because no matter what I said, even the word bodhicitta, they had never heard it before. As for renunciation, what that even means, there was no way to convey it. So for these people, trying to help them through Buddhist terminology simply wasn't going to work. And telling them to be good people, well, they were already locked up in prison. What does being a good person even mean now? Saying that to them would carry its own difficulties. But by reciting the Mani mantra together with them, a seed of merit was planted in their mind streams. So sometimes when we see animals being killed, or insects drowning in a river, or dying under the scorching sun, I recite the Mani mantra. Sometimes on television or in the news, we see large numbers of people dying, people killed in conflicts, people dying in Iran, people dying in Ukraine, people dying in Russia, or people falling on battlefields elsewhere in the world. On the surface, it may seem to have nothing to do with me. But we can put ourselves in their shoes. We can try to imagine, if we were there in that moment, how terrifying that fear, that anguish, that dread would be. It is truly overwhelming. So quietly, facing the news, I recite, Om Mani Padme Hum, more deaths, Om Mani Padme Hum, somewhere else in crisis again. If we gradually cultivate this habit, it truly matters. This is genuine practice. It is not some kind of performance. From the bottom of my heart, when I see others suffering, I cannot go there and take their place, nor can I go there and stop it. But through a pure and open heart, by dedicating merit as best I can, those beings will surely receive some benefit. So we should frequently pray to the three jewels, and with that as our foundation, regularly recite the Mani mantra. The Mani mantra truly brings great benefit to ourselves and to others. As many scriptures have taught, if we pray to Avalokiteshvara, all kinds of disasters and all kinds of harm can be averted. This is attested throughout the life stories of Avalokiteshvara. There are countless scriptures in the Han and Tibetan traditions. And for those of us who are getting older or facing illness at times like these, praying to Avalokiteshvara yields truly inconceivable merit. Take Master Yongming Yansho. When he faced a crisis while imprisoned, he prayed to Avalokiteshvara and was suddenly released. Then there is the elder master Mengchan. While he was in prison, 2 fellow inmates were terrified. They had already been sentenced to death. He urged them to recite the Mani mantra with everything they had, and to earnestly seek Avalokiteshvara's blessings. And something remarkable happened. In a very short time, it was determined that they had been wrongly convicted, and they were quickly set free. Stories like this are countless, even for things like memory loss or when illness strikes. Praying to Avalokiteshvara has proven remarkably effective. Take Master Hsing Yun. He received ordination at around 15 years of age, and during the ceremony, incense was burned onto his head to mark the ordination scars. And the person performing the ritual kept blowing forcefully on the burning incense again and again. In the end, all 12 ordination scars merged into one. His mind fell into a state like that of a vegetative person, dazed and unable to function. But through continuous prayer to Avalokiteshvara, his awareness fully recovered. I came across this in a biography or introduction to him, and it was mentioned there as well. These are not fairy tales or myths. In our own experience, how shall I put it, there are also many such instances of Avalokiteshvara's blessings manifesting. Today there isn't anything particularly specific I want to say to you all. Right now all of us are living through what is a rather critical moment. Why do I say that? Because for all of us, myself included, I have spent roughly 40 years teaching the Dharma without interruption. But now I truly don't know how much longer this will continue. On one hand, there is the condition of my own physical health, and on the other, various external circumstances, because many of the current regulations and restrictions prohibit appearing on camera in this way. So it may come to a point where even sharing through audio or video with all of you becomes difficult. But regardless, I personally feel at peace with all of this. Looking back, including the time when I was teaching the Shurangama Sutra, I made it very clear to everyone, impermanence can arrive at any moment. Before that happens, the teachings that needed to be given have been given. The words that needed to be said have been said. For those who are truly committed to practice, there should be no shortage. And our other teachers as well. They have worked tirelessly and given so much over their lifetimes. As for myself, I have essentially spent decades without a single day off, with very little distraction or rest, and the great majority of my time has been devoted entirely to this. For those who have the affinity and the faith and the genuine interest, many people will have received at least some portion of the teachings, the Dharma of study and the Dharma of realization. They will have gained something, but no matter what happens in the future, even if, like the great masters of the past, one finds oneself in prison, quietly reciting the Mani mantra, this is something that for each person can never be taken away, unless your physical body is gone. As long as you still have your body, you will be able to do this. So reciting the Mani mantra among all wholesome practices is the most accessible. You can recite the Mani mantra, Om Mani Padme Hum, or the Manu Shri mantra, Om Arapatiya Senadi, or the Vajrasattva mantra, Om Vajrasattva Hum, or the Guru Rinpoche mantra, Om Ahum Vajra Guru Padma Siddhi Hum. These mantras for each and every one of us, if the connection is there, you can practice them now. If your practice deepens and grows, you can then study the middle way or the great perfection. And even the highest tantric teachings, there is what Guru Padma Sambhava called Ati Yoga, which transcends even Dzogchen, this Ati Yoga. In the Manjushri Nama Sangiti, Guru Rinpoche spoke at length about the transcendent nature of Ati Yoga. He taught it extensively. These are practices you can pursue as well. But if you truly have no time, no faith, no interest, if you are extremely busy, extremely tired, or if you are in a particularly sensitive position, then quietly recite the Mani mantra. This, I believe, will never face any restriction. Nowadays, some people seem to use excuses, saying things like, "It's inconvenient for me because of my situation. My family circumstances are special. My identity is special. My workplace is special. My friends or family members are special." People come up with all kinds of special labels and use them to justify giving in and not practicing the Dharma. But honestly, that doesn't really help. Everyone, without exception, can find reasons why practice seems difficult. Everyone has them, including me. My health isn't great. I've been feeling low lately. I've got this or that going on. I could skip teaching today. There's no shortage of reasons. I could skip the translations. I could skip the recitations. But making excuses like this for ourselves really serves no purpose. So this precious human life that each of us has, it is truly, truly precious. And if we have such a precious human life and don't use it to practice the Dharma, what a shame that would be. So what I want to share with everyone this time is this. Not everyone may have a great deal of time or be able to follow, say, hundreds of courses, hundreds or even dozens of them. On the one hand, the interest may not be there, but on the other, the means certainly are. Everyone has a phone or a computer. There could be 1,000 classes on that computer, all saved and ready for you. Some people say, I can't, and it's true, you can't during work hours. But after work, surely it's possible. When many people say I can't, it's really just a kind of excuse for laziness. I don't quite buy it. But if you haven't yet formed the connection, or your faith isn't strong enough yet, that I understand completely. For each person, the karmic connection with certain teachings may not yet be there, or with certain teachers' courses, their explanations, you may simply not have that connection. These things happen in all kinds of ways. But the most important thing is this. Please don't let your entire life slip by in a short span of excuses. Whether it's daily or monthly, set aside some time, for example. How many classes will I attend this year? Make a plan for yourself. This year I will study this course. Some people I know are genuinely very busy, but they manage their time very well. Within a single week, they decide how many classes to listen to, how many mantras to recite that week. These are choices they make for themselves. So for yourself, there should be a yearly plan, a monthly plan, and for each day from morning to evening, have your own schedule. Otherwise, life for many people just drifts by in a haze. There's a saying that goes, no one knew when you were born, and even you don't know when you will die. A person who lives in ignorance comes into this world in silence and leaves in silence. No one around them even noticed. There's really no need for that. We have truly been given this precious human life, and on top of that, we have encountered such extraordinary Mahayana Dharma, like a wish-fulfilling jewel, along with genuine spiritual friends. If at such a moment we still don't follow the teachings or practice with diligence, it is a tremendous loss. This human body we have cannot last forever. So while we are still alive, let us do as much good as we can. Charity, service, acts of kindness. And in this brief time we have, transform our tainted wealth and merit into untainted merit and wealth. And in the time we have left in this life, the practices to do, the recitations, all that needs to be accomplished, ideally, let us complete them early. We should put genuine effort into this. It is truly necessary. As for other things, I won't say much more today. All right, I hope everyone will recite the mantra of Avalokiteshvara often. This is something I ask of you for your own sake. I have no other demands. It is deeply beneficial for you personally in this life and in lives to come. Recite the mantra of Avalokiteshvara more often. As for the merit of this mantra, if you're not yet convinced, you can look it up. See what the Universal Gate chapter says. See what the Karandavyuha Sutra says. Read them carefully. And after that, if we have even a little wisdom, we will understand that Avalokiteshvara's mantra is just 6 syllables, or Namo Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, also just a handful of words. Yet the merit and meaning of these few words far surpasses ordinary gold or diamonds, incomparably more precious. People sometimes tend to only assign value to material things, always putting a price tag on them. This is worth tens of millions of dollars, that's worth billions of this or that. But when it comes to spiritual wealth, most people have no idea how to value it. So even from a worldly perspective, looking at it from certain angles, if you recite Avalokiteshvara's name regularly and make it a habit, the value you get is extraordinarily high. Even though you can't see it with your eyes, its value is real. Think of gold, it's the same way. It looks like just a yellow rock, something yellow, nothing special at first glance. But it is completely different from ordinary iron or wood. They are simply not the same. Likewise, Om Mani Padme Hum, it may seem like nothing special, just 6 syllables, right? But in truth, all the words we speak in daily life are nothing compared to the essential meaning held within them. They are simply not the same. This is why so many practitioners of the past were unwilling to waste their time in scattered idle chatter or meaningless talk. They would devote every moment to reciting the mantra. So in a single lifetime, look at those great teachers, how many mantras they recited in their lives. And yet we also, with a human body, may reach the end of our lives, and as we prepare to leave this world, not even have recited a few 100,000 or a few million mantras. What a shame. So sometimes we should look at ourselves. Do we often have a prayer wheel in our hands? Is the prayer wheel here? It seems like it's somewhere up. It seems that during this period of teachings, before and after class, my recitation has been interrupted. So my prayer wheel has gone unused for quite a while. That's a bit of a pity. Since I can't use it at other times right now, let me use the prayer wheel now. You see, I have a prayer wheel here too. On Mani Padme Hum. Now let us all recite together the mantra of Avalokiteshvara. You see, we just recited 108 times. I hope that if you're able to, when you wake up in the morning, recite the mantra of Avalokiteshvara 108 times, and again before going to sleep at night, or at least once a day, on Mani Padme Hum. In doing so, your mind and emotions will begin to settle. And when your mind settles, it is like a wonderful recharge for the individual. Right now, many of us are under a lot of pressure. Our minds are more reactive. We feel worn out, exhausted. Both body and mind are weary. But if with a light heart you gently recite this mantra of Avalokiteshvara, your mind will gradually come into a much better place. And there is also a kind of inconceivable blessing within it. Through that blessing, your body and mind will grow healthier and healthier. When you face difficulties, your heart will not be so fragile. And in whatever you do, you will find great inner strength. This inner strength matters so much, and it is perfectly natural to have it. I once wrote something called "Your Fragility is Normal." Someone told me afterward, you should also write "Your Strength is Normal." They're right. Each of us carries Buddha nature within us, and if we can truly awaken it, we are more capable than anything, because each of us carries this treasury of wisdom within. With that, there is nothing we cannot face. So I hope that with all this wonderful spiritual wealth available to us, we don't leave it unused and suffer needlessly. I came across a short video recently where people were on social media attacking each other's faults. It was quite sad. It seems that many people today are remarkably skilled when it comes to meaningless things, sharp with words, eloquent in expression, yet all they are doing is accumulating negative karma. There is simply no need for that. Instead, we should offer the world something genuinely positive. At the same time, through the blessings of Avalokiteshvara, Manjushri and Guru Rinpoche, may our own minds come to rest in peace. And for all beings who have a connection with us, may they be free from suffering and find happiness. Hold such a beautiful aspiration. Even in this brief life, you may fall ill, you may encounter obstacles, but on the whole, our lives will be meaningful. Our hearts will grow stronger and stronger. As long as your heart is strong, you can face anything. Even the sufferings of samsara will be something you can transcend with ease. So may all of us find greater and greater happiness as we go forward. May everyone, through the supreme blessings of Avalokiteshvara, bring happiness to every being. May all beings who have a connection with us find their suffering gradually diminishing. May they have ever more opportunities to form auspicious connections with Avalokiteshvara and all the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas and Great Masters, and may all ultimately attain liberation and nirvana. All right.
Bandhangara Padma Sodargye